Hello students, myself Maitri Dave and today we are going to understand the acoustical construction. So let us start our today's lecture. So basically let me give you the introduction of acoustics first. The word acoustics is originally derived from a Greek word meaning to hear. Hence the acoustics is defined as the science of sound and such it discusses the origin, propagation and auditory sensation of sound. A sound is produced when part of the atmosphere is compressed suddenly. But due to elasticity of air, the particles originally disturbed in turn disturb the neighboring particles. Ultimately, the compression is propagated or sprayed away from the source. The sound thus travels in the form of waves, and when these waves come near to our eardrums, we feel the sensation of hearing, right? So that is the introduction of acoustics. Now, let me give you the idea about the requirements of good acoustic material. So, first thing is it should be durable and should not be liable to attacked by insects and termites. It should be easily available at a reasonable cost. It should be efficient over a wide range of frequencies. It should be fire resistant. It should be non-hygroscopic and heat insulating. It should be non-hygroscopic and heat insulating. Right? It should be self-supporting and should be capable of easy fixing. It should give pleasing appearance after fixing. It should have high coefficient of the absorption and it should have sufficient natural strength, right? So these all are the requirement of a good acoustic material. Now let us see different types of absorbent material. So here the first type is of Herfeld, then the second is the acoustic plaster, then the acoustical tiles, then the straw board and the pulp boards, and further we can say the sixth one is all about the compressed fiber board. Then the seventh one is about the compressed wood particle board. Eighth one is the perforated plywood. Ninth one is the wood wool board. And tenth one is the quids and mats, right? So let us start with the first one, which is Herfeld. This material was used by Professor Sabin in this experimental work. The average value of coefficient of absorbent of 25 mm thick Herfeld is 0.60 as shown in this figure. Now, the second one is the acoustic plaster. So, this is also known as the fibrous plaster and it includes granulated insulation material mixed with the cement. If quantity of cement is more than required, the plaster will not have sufficient pores to become effective for acoustics. If quantity of cement is less, the plaster will not have enough strength. Thus, the quantity of cement should be carefully decided. For thickness of 20 mm and density of 1 kilonewton per meter cube, the acoustic plaster possesses an absorbent coefficient of 0.30 at 500 cycles per second. The acoustic plaster boards are also available. They can be fixed on the wall and their coefficient of absorbent varies from 0.15 to 0.30 as shown in this figure. Now let me talk about the third one, which is acoustic tiles. So these are made in factory and sold under different trade names. The absorption of sound is uniform from tile to tile and they can be fixed easily. However, the acoustical tiles are relatively costly than other absorbent material. They are most suitable for rooms in which small area is available for the acoustical treatment. Here you can see a clear image of these acoustic tiles. The fourth one is this straw board. This material can also be used as absorbent material. With a thickness of 13 mm and density of 2.4 kilonewton per meter cube, it possesses a coefficient of absorption of 0.30 at 500 cycles per second. Here is a clear image of the straw board. Next is the fifth one, pulp boards. These are the soft boards which are prepared from the compressed pulp. They are cheap and can be fixed by ordinary paneling. The average value of coefficient of absorption is 0.17 as shown in this figure. Now let us move to the sixth one, which is compressed fiber board. These material may be perforated or unperforated. The average coefficient of absorption for the former is 0.30 and for the later is 0.52. It has a density of 3 kilonewton per meter cube. Here is a clear image of this compressed fibers. Now let me give you idea about the seventh one, which is compressed wood particle board. This material is provided with perforations and it can be painted also. With a thickness of about 13 mm and the average coefficient of absorption is 0.40. Here is a clear image of these compressed wood particle boards. Now the eighth one is the perforated plywood. So this material can be used by forming composite panels with mineral wool and cement asbestos or with mineral wool and the hardwood. It is generally suspended from the trusses and the average value of coefficient of absorption for the former composite panel is as high as 0.95 and for the later composite panel it is about 0.20. Here you can see a clear image of this perforated plywoods. Now the ninth one is the wood wool board. This material is generally used with a thickness of 25 mm and it has a density of 4 kilonewton per meter cube. The average coefficient of absorption is 0.20. This is a clear image of this wood wool board. The 10th one is the quilts and the mats. These are prepared from mineral wood or glass wool and are fixed in the form of acoustic blankets. The absorption coefficient depends on the thickness, density, perforations, mode of fixing, nature of backing and frequency of sound. Here you can see the clear image of these quilts. Now let me give you an idea about the conditions for good acoustics of an auditorium or a hall. So the first one is the initial sound should be adequate intensity or loudness. This is quite obvious as it is impossible for a speaker to be heard over a long distance without the help of sound amplification system. Second is we can say that the sound which is produced should be evenly spread over the whole area covered by the audience. If this condition is not satisfied, the condition tending the formation of echoes will be established. The initial sound should be clear and distinct so that there is no possibility of a disordered speech. For a hall to be used for music, the initial sound should reach the audience with the same frequency and the intensity. And the fifth one is all undesired sound should be reduced to such an extent that it will not interfere with the normal hearing of music or speech. The undesired sound may be originating either from the inside or outside of the room. Now, which are the factors we have to consider in the acoustic design of an auditorium? So here the first one is the volume, second one is the shape, then the sound absorption, then the site selection, seats and sitting arrangement, right? So let us start with the first one, volume. So the hall should have enough volume and it should be desired while keeping in view the intensities of the sounds likely to be developed in the hall. For halls to be used only for the music, the volume should be large so that there will be enough space for the music to spread in the hall. On the other hand, the halls of small volumes are useful for weak sounds. The best guide for deciding the volume of a proposed auditorium would be detailed study of an existing auditorium used for similar purpose. The recommended volume for different type of auditoriums are as follows. It means if I talk about the cinemas or theaters, here 4 meter cube to 5 meter cube per person is the range. Second is the musical halls or the concert hall, then 4 meter cube to 5.5 meter cube per person should be the range. And lastly, if I talk about the public lecture halls, then it should be in between 3.5 to 4.5 meter cube per person, right? Now, let me talk about the second one, which is shape. So this is a very important consideration in the acoustic design of an auditorium and it involves geometrical aspects of the hall. The paths followed by the reflected sound waves are traced and concentration of sound waves, if any, are noted. The concave walls are not good for acoustic purpose as they tend to concentrate sound waves. The plain walls are better, but the convex walls are excellent and are used to reduce the possibility of echoes to the minimum extent. Now let me talk about a fan-shaped floor plan which gives better performance. The side walls should be arranged to have an angle of not more than 100 degrees with the curtain lines as shown in this figure. The fan-shaped plan gives favorable reflection of the sound from sides. For taking pictures, the synchronization of sound with lip movement is the most essential. For theaters, a person with normal vision should be able to discern facial expression of the actors on stage. And to satisfy these conditions, the distance of the farthest seat from the curtain line should generally not exceed 23 meter, right? So that are the consideration for the shape. Now let us talk about the third one, which is sound absorption. So the adequate absorbing surface should be provided in the hall to control the reverberation. The acoustic design of an auditorium will be incomplete without the provision of such surface. The careful study of the hall should be made before recommending the type of absorbent material and its location in the hall. The surfaces from which the sound is likely to be reflected should be so designed as to assist distribution of sound. The areas likely to cause objectionable sound reflections should be clearly sorted out for the treatment with the sound absorbing material. Such areas include rear walls, balcony parapet, concave surface, etc. And the rest should be properly distributed on the remaining surfaces. Now, let me talk about the fourth one, which is all about site selection. So here, noise pollution is the most important consideration for site selection. If the site is not situated in a quiet place, elaborate costly arrangement will have to be made to have an acoustically good hall. For auditoriums without air conditioning and requiring doors and windows to be kept open during performance, the orientation should be such that the external noise is permitted to the minimum possible extent. Depending upon the surrounding noise level of the site, structural design, orientation, layout, and such other factors, it should be seen that the background noise level not exceed 40 dB to 45 dB is achieved within the hall. So these are the criteria for the site selection. Now let me talk about the fifth one, which is all about seat and sitting arrangement. So here the seats should be arranged in concentric arcs of the circles. The center from which the circle should be drawn should be located as much behind the center of curtain line as the distance of curtain line from the auditorium rear wall. The factors to be considered for seats and sitting arrangement are as follows. Where the first one is the arrangement, second is back-to-back distance, balcony seats, covering of seats, frontmost row, raising of seats and width of seats. So let us start with the first one, the arrangement. So the sets should be staggered sideways in relation to those in front so that a listener in a row or in any row is not looking directly over the head of the person in front of him. Second is the back-to-back distance. The back-to-back distance of chairs in successive rows or seats should be at least 450 mm and this distance may be increased up to 1000 mm or so for extra comfort. Now, the next one, third one is the balcony. Where balcony is provided, the precautions to be taken are as follows. It means here you can see one image where the longitudinal section of a typical auditorium is there, where you can see the L1, H1, H3, right? All the diagram says the distances clearly so that you can understand what is the screen, what is the entry, what is the splayed ceiling, what is the sound gallery, right? So you will get the idea. Now, what are the precautions? Here it is said that L1 should not greater than 2 times the H1, where L1 is the projection of balcony and H1 is the height of balcony edge at the end. Again, L1 should not greater than L by 3, where L is the length of auditorium. Next is H2 is not less than 3 meter, where H2 is the height of balcony edge at the entry. and H3 should not be less than 2.3, where H3 is height of last row in balcony from projection room. So these are the precautions that one should keep in mind. Now, here this figure shows the longitudinal section of a typical auditorium where if the balconies are deep, there are chances for the sound shadows to be developed. It is due to the fact that the seats underneath the balcony do not receive the ceiling reflection. The defect of sound shadow can be rectified by providing angle reflectors as shown in this figure. Now, here you can see the sound shadows where the reflection is clearly shown, right? Now, let me talk about the fourth one, balcony seats. So, the elevation of the balcony seat should be such that the line of sight is not inclined more than 30 degrees to the horizon. When I talk about the covering of seat, if covered seats are provided, the acoustic characteristics of the hall are not appreciably altered by the fluctuating audience occupancy. Next is the frontmost row. It means the angle subtended with the horizontal at the frontmost observer by the highest object to be seen on the stage should not exceed 30 degrees. On this basis, the distance of the first row work out about 4.5 meter for cinema and 3.6 meter for theatre. Now let me talk about the seventh one, raising of seats. The successive row of seats should be raised over the preceding ones for good visibility and good listening conditions. The rise in level may be between 80 mm to 120 mm per row. As a thumb rule, the angle of elevation of the inclined floor of the auditorium should not be less than 8 degrees. Eighth one is the width of seats. The width of seats should be in between 450 mm to 600 mm. With this, we have completed these 5 parameters or the factors that one should consider in acoustical design of an auditorium. Now, let us see some objects which are involved in the design of an auditorium. So, the first one is there should be good direct path for the sound. This will enable the sound to be heard loudly and clearly and will avoid confusion with subsequent reflections. Second is it should be seen that none of the subsequent reflections has the same strength as the original sound and the desired degree of reverberation should be provided in the auditorium. So now let us talk about some of the defects and their remedies for an auditorium. So the first defect can be the reverberation, then the formation of echoes, then the sound foci, then the dead spots, loudness, exterior noise, right? So let us start with the first one, reverberation. So the defect of excessive reverberation is very common in many auditoriums. And the effect is that the sound once created prolongs for a longer duration, resulting in confusion with the sound created next. So what is the remedy? To correct this time of reverberation by suitably installing the absorbent material, right? So that is the remedy. Now let us talk about the second type, which is the formation of echoes. So when the refracting surface are situated at a distance greater than 17 meter or so, and when the shape of the auditorium is unsuitable, the formation of echoes takes place. So what is the remedy? By selecting proper shape of the auditorium, we can remove this. And even by providing rough and porous interior surface to disperse the energy of the echoes, we can solve this query. Now let us talk about the third one, which is sound foci, where in case of concave reflecting interior surface, certain spots are formed where reflected sound waves meet and create a sound of large intensity. These spots are known as the sound foci. What is the remedy? By avoiding some curvilinear interiors, even by providing higher absorbent material on the focusing areas. Now let us move to the fourth one, dead spot. So here, this defect is just the reverse of the sound foci. Because of high concentration of reflected sound at the sound foci, there is deficiency of reflected sound at some other point. These points are known as the dead spots. The sound level at the dead spot is generally inadequate for satisfactory hearing. Now for this we can do what? By installation of suitable diffusers we can solve this query. Now let us move to the fifth one, which is loudness. So this defect is due to lack of the reflecting surfaces near the source of sound and excessive absorption of sound in the hall. Now for remedy, I can say by arranging hard reflecting surfaces near the source of sound and in adjusting the absorption of the hall so as to give an optimum time of reverberation. If length of hall is more, it is desirable to have a source of sound by installation of loudspeakers. By carefully adjusting the location of loudspeakers, we can solve this query. Now let us move to the sixth one, which is exterior noise. So this defect is due to the poor sound insulation and hence the exterior noise enters the auditorium either through loose doors and windows or through walls and other structural elements having improper sound insulation. The exterior noise is developed by the vehicles, factories, cooling plant, etc. Now for this, we can say for remedy that by providing suitable sound insulation to various components of the auditorium, we can solve this query. So with this, we have discussed all the defects as well as the remedies for an auditorium. I hope you understand all the topics in detail for today's lecture. Thank you for watching. See you soon in the next lecture.